First off, this is the best performance The Rock has ever given. Brand new day. Can we talk about this for a second? Can we talk about the news? Yeah, okay. So, first off, there's been a lot that's been going on with that movie. On top, honestly, for whatever reason, we've got more developments about that than we have Avengers Doomsday. So great, thanks for that. But we got a major casting announcement. Whether he's the main villain or not, I doubt he is. But we have a villain that's going to appear in the film. We have an idea of who's playing him because they announced it. Which also kind of gives us an idea of what story they're telling. But that's the casting of good old
Marvin Jones the third as Tombstone.
Marvin Jones the third as Tombstone.
So I've been doing a lot of thinking on this, and it is an interesting question in terms of the big villain that they've very clearly strongly hinted at is Mr. Negative as like the main villain, because Mr. Negative is more than just like a Sinister Six style. He's like a main, well, because all the Sinister Six are main villains, but with Mr. Negative specifically, he's a pretty big villain. That's who they've been setting up to be the main villain. So my question is Tombstone actually going to play a big role?
No.
Or is he going to be, you know how in the beginning of Superman, in the beginning of the Fantastic Four, they did their whole montage thing?
Yeah.
Do you think we're going to get something similar as a way to establish the style of Spider-Man movie we're going to be getting into in terms of a more grounded street level? And they're going to do that by introducing like Tombstone, like they did, what was it, Rhinoceros in TASM 2 or TASM 1?
No, we don't talk about that. That didn't exist. But
I'm using that as an example to be like, this could be the way that they go.
No, and I'm telling you that example just doesn't exist. There was never a Rhino. There was never a TASM 2. That just doesn't exist, you know.
Did I at least get the movie right? Was it TASM 2?
No, yeah, you did.
Okay. Sorry, it's been a while since I've seen those movies. But yeah, no.
I wonder why it's been a while since you've seen those movies.
Fair enough. No, I'm excited. The reason why I'm excited, Marvin Jones Jr., the main thing that I know him from is Black Lightning. Now, to be fair, I never finished Black Lightning. I think I watched a season and a half of Black Lightning. It was when the CW shows were on a downtick. And I just it wasn't Black Lightning's fault. It was just a general interest in the CW universe, which is sad because I was one of the biggest CW universe defenders that there ever was. He played the main villain in Black Lightning. And for what we got of him, I thought he did a really good job. And I would say, yes, he makes perfect sense for a Tombstone. His general mannerisms, besides just his looks, which his looks are literally the definition of a Tombstone, his actual like mannerisms and acting abilities in Black Lightning set him up perfectly to be that mob boss style character.
Well, that's he just looks like the character of Tombstone. Like when you look up a picture of Tombstone, this guy who has a massive, like, even, okay, let's use this for example. When you look at the Spider-Verse version of Tombstone and you see exactly how he's laid out with the weird bowl, I don't know what it's called, the army style
head, yeah,
squared off head. I don't know what you want to call it. I almost said army style haircut.
But like style ass haircut, yeah.
Right, and you see like the face. You're like, that. He just looks like Tombstone, albeit he looks a little older than I feel like he does in Spider-Verse, which isn't like saying much. You can de-age somebody and whatnot, or maybe he's just the right age, and I just don't know what Tombstone clearly is. But he looks the part, and that's without any of the costumes, without any of the effects, without any of the makeup, without all of it. And he looks like the role. And we know he can act it to a certain degree because he was in Spider-Verse. That being said,
was it Spider-Verse? I thought it was Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man.
Spider-Verse.
That he voiced
let me look. I will look right now.
Because that's the other big thing with this cast.
Spider-Verse.
It was Spider-Verse because Marvin Jones Jr. did in fact voice Tombstone previously.
Yeah, and I think it's Spider-Verse because I don't see anything about Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man for him here.
Okay, I'm reading over the IGN article right now. This says that he hasn't voiced him yet, but he will be reprising his role in Beyond the Spider-Verse. So from what I'm seeing, it isn't that he has voiced him already. It's the fact that he will voice. Oh, wait. No, you're right. I'm wrong. It is.
I'm on IMDb right now.
Yeah, the 2018 Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Correct. Okay.
about to say, I was like, what? I was like, what are you talking about? What do you
Yeah.
mean?
Sorry, I was reading the bottom of the article, not the top of the article.
No, you're good.
That information.
I'm pretty sure he wasn't in Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Like I feel like I would have
There
known
was
that.
a Tombstone in
Yeah, but I was about to say, I feel like I would have
he was
clocked it
way
if it was
younger.
him.
Yeah.
Long story short, it's an animated movie, and my point of getting at is, even though I do trust Marvel to cast people, because that at least that has not been a broken track history with them yet, is like casting people that work or don't work. They have at least casted their movies pretty well.
Mhm.
Tombstone is the one where I'm iffy on because in Spider-Verse, I think he has maybe like 3 lines of dialogue, and most of them are because he's the henchman of Kingpin, and they come
Yeah.
off as that. It's like yes sir or get over here. I don't know why I pulled a scorpion when I said that. But like those were his lines and those were his dialogue. We haven't seen a Tombstone yet from him that's like, I guess technically competent is the best way to say it. So I'm just interested to see where they take that. And honestly, the other thing I thought about is what if they're pairing him up with another person to fight in the beginning, like a Scorpion, because there were rumors that we were going to get Matt Gargan again, and he was going
I
to be
feel like that
Scorpion.
would be an interesting decision just because they already did that in Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, in
But
a way.
they hadn't done it yet in live action. They teased him in Homecoming.
Scorpion, yeah.
So
Well, I think it has been confirmed that Scorpion will play a role. Again, I feel like a lot of these villains, though, is going to be a first 30 minutes of the movie. We're setting up that this is a lot more friendly neighborhood style, down
sure,
to earth Spider
yeah,
Man who's fighting a Scorpion, a Tombstone. I don't think that it's going to be this. Oh, Tombstone is the main villain. I do
yeah,
think it's going to be Mr. Negative. Mr. Negative is going to be, and I think that's very like, I think evidenced by the fact that we know the Tombstone casting, we know the Scorpion casting because he was already in a movie. We
right.
don't know who's playing Mr. Negative, even though all signs point to Mr. Negative. If they haven't released his casting yet, but he's very clearly a major part of the movie, it's probably purposeful. They're probably saving that reveal until later. But a Tombstone you can throw out there because it doesn't matter as much.
Honestly, that would be one of those things where you wouldn't reveal that it's Mr. Negative. You'd reveal who's the alter ego of Mr. Negative. Who's like the actual like good person.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Something Lee.
Yeah.
Something Lee. I don't know. You reveal that part of him in the trailer. People can put it together that it would be Mr. Negative because he's in the trailer and whatnot. But that's for like Marvel fans. That's for people who played the Spider-Man video game. That's for people who know where that story goes. But for people who have no idea and don't know what's going to happen and why is there just this random guy named Mr. Lee in this shot, that's a big twist at the end is to reveal that he's Mr. Negative.
I think that's a good way to set it up in the trailer, maybe, where you set him up as the good guy version, and
I
then
wouldn't.
don't reveal anything about him being evil, but those who know will know. Or are you saying they're not going to include Mr. Negative in the trailers at all?
Here's what I want for the trailers, and I don't disagree with you mostly because I feel like Marvel's going to do that anyway. But I don't like that. I would prefer them focus on a Tombstone or a Scorpion, and they don't have to be the major focus of the trailer. They could just be the action shots in the trailer so that we have something exciting to look at for Spider-Man. Have the trailer focus on Peter, Ned, and MJ. Even though Ned and MJ aren't playing as big of roles in this film than they previously have, let it focus on that, and then let it focus on whatever character Sadie Sink is playing.
Okay.
And that way you can save the Mr. Negative reveal. You can save the fact that he would be a part of the movie, and you don't have to spoil it.
I think that's fair. I do think that that's fair, actually.
Like that, like you.
Unfortunately, I don't think that's where Marvel's going to
No,
go, but
but like
I
if you're
agree with you.
following, like, even though it's a new trilogy and it's more grounded and it's less a big action well, as far as we know, multiversal. It's not multiversal. The trailer could literally be as simple as Peter, is talking about his life prior. You see a few shots of his friends. You see a cool few action shots. Maybe you get one more shot of his friends, and they just don't know who he is. Thank you, Spider-Man. Whatever. And then the last shot can be the reveal of whoever Sadie Sink is playing, or and then you have
I
a few
think
shots
that's
with
fair.
her. done. You're done. Obviously, you have trailer 2 to capitalize on, which that's a different story. But the initial trailer, that's what you could do, and I
Trailer
think it would be
2,
easy.
and then your TV spot, and then your second TV spot, and then
Sure.
when they leak the script online because
Right,
that's
right,
like
right,
like
right.
first trailer, great first trailer. Everything else after that probably gonna just reveal the entire movie as Marvel typically does. But no, I actually do agree with you for the first trailer. Now, pivoting a little bit, when it comes to the Spider-Man trilogy that we're hopefully setting up with the new Tom Holland trilogy, where he seems to be a lot more involved in also moving back to your grounded like storytelling. My assumption is that there's no way in hell they're making a Secret Wars movie with the setup of the symbiote without giving Spider-Man the symbiote. That's going to happen in Secret Wars. I'm very excited to see that. I actually hope that they recreate the shot from the Secret Wars comic book cover. It's one of the most iconic comic book covers ever. I really like genuinely hope that they recreate that. But
Sure.
I think that that leads into after Secret Wars, you lead into you can still tell a grounded story, but you're now telling the grounded story of Spider-Man grappling with Venom. You don't tell that story in Secret Wars, you set it up in Secret Wars, and then you kick it off into the next Spider-Man movie. I know we're jumping the gun past Brand New Day, but I do think that that is a natural progression of where I hope that the new Spider-Man movie goes.
Sure. Well, and at the end of No Way Home, we had a post-credit scene with Eddie Brock because, of course, they wanted to link the Venom universe with the No Way Home universe, and
Correct.
for whatever reason, even though Venom never showed up in the movie except for a post-credit scene, which it's fine. I guess it's fine. There was a piece of Venom that was left in our universe. There's multiple different ways they could take it. I've had many of debates uh trying to figure out what I think it could possibly mean. I thought about the idea that, talking about how Ned doesn't want to become a supervillain to fight Peter. Ned, now not knowing who Peter is at all, could easily don the Venom outfit with, out of care in the world, or maybe something in his life without Peter there, just send him on a completely different trajectory so that when he gets the Venom
Yeah.
symbiote, he has to fight Peter. I thought about that being a possibility. I thought about the possibility of this is how they introduce Harry Osborn, is similar to in the game. Harry, is infested by something with the Venom related suit. Norman's trying to get it off. And maybe that's a reveal we don't get for a few years down the line, is that Venom did
Yeah,
latch
that's
on
fair.
somebody. It latched on to Harry, and Norman's been trying to get it off of him this entire time. But that, like, here's the tricky thing with that storyline. I don't know if I really. They're going to give him in there if we get a Norman Osborn. I don't know if I want a Harry Osborn story in which Peter Parker didn't know Harry Osborn prior, because that role kind of went to Ned Leeds. Is the new
So
Harry
basically,
Osborn?
what they would need to do is set up Harry Osborn in Brand New Day
Yes,
and then have that lead into. But I'd argue that that isn't okay. I guess the argument could be that it isn't enough setup. However, if it plays enough of a core role for Brand New Day, which I think could be an interesting way with the Mr. Negative storyline, I
could.
think because you're going grounded, because he needs to find new friends as well, I think that that could actually be a really good way to incorporate the Harry Osborn into the story, which would then kick you off into the second Spider-Man movie where the Venom symbiote is not introduced for the first time, but introduced to like the Spider-Man dealing with having a Venom symbiote.
Right, because I also see a world where Marvel would pull a Tasm too, which is you don't know Harry Osborn's even alive, you don't even know he exists, and then in the movie you just see that he's dying clearly, and he is
Yeah,
begging to Peter for mercy. But like if they did that in this trilogy, we don't know how long they've met. We don't know if they met prior. We don't know anything, and so there's a good
yeah,
chance that they're just meeting for the first time, and it's just Harry going up, please, please give me your blood, please.
yeah,
Give me
yeah.
your blood, Peter. And I'm like, that just doesn't work. You can't pull that off. I am also just like a little iffy on the timeline. Are we getting a trailer for Brand New Day before the Doomsday trailer, which people are saying we're probably going
So
to get in December?
it's been soft confirmed from my understanding that we'll be getting a Doomsday trailer as we got the Avatar trailer for the Superman movie. Or I believe no, it was Odyssey for Superman and then Avatar for like Fantastic Four or something like that, if I remember correctly. Something like that. We're gonna get the Doomsday trailer before Avatar Fire and Ash.
Okay.
or at least a teaser for it. Kind of like I'd assume probably the length of the Odyssey one because we're
Sure.
still a year out at that point in time.
Yeah.
Brand New Day, I'd assume yes. I'd assume that we're talking unless they save it for like a big Super Bowl pop, but then you're getting real close to the movie coming out.
Actually, never mind. No, that's actually possible because I'm trying to think of the track history. Deadpool and Wolverine came out pretty darn
Super
close
Bowl.
to my birthday. Yeah, but
That
it
was
came out pretty
oh,
darn
the
close.
movie itself.
The movie itself came out pretty darn close to my birthday, and that was on July 26th. Why do I remember that? I don't know why I remember that. Movie came out on July 26th. Um, and I know the trailer dropped in the Super Bowl because that's literally the whole reason I'd watched. I was like, I'm watching the Super Bowl this year just for this, like this sole
Yeah.
factor alone, nothing else.
They dropped the trailer like early, a day early online or something like that, if I remember.
Yeah, and I didn't
Yeah.
watch that. I just waited until the Super Bowl to watch it. Um, so for Spider-Man, because it is like the movie itself is releasing on, it actually is releasing on my birthday. There's a very strong chance that it could be on the Super Bowl that they
Yeah,
dropped the first trailer.
I think that Spider-Man Brand New Day is a Super Bowl pop, and then I think in order to build up hype for Doomsday, you need a year in advance of releasing more information. Because you're right, we've gotten way more information about Brand New Day than we have Doomsday, but Brand New Day is also coming out sooner than Doomsday because they said that they're done filming their main things, like they wrapped like the major filming, but they also said that they're far from done with the production of the movie. The production on a Spider-Man movie is way easier to do. It just
Well, especially if you make it street level, yeah, it will be.
correct. So it makes sense that Doomsday they are gonna build up hype, but you're not gonna get as much information in advance because they want to make sure that they know exactly the story that they're gonna tell. With Brand New Day, I'm pretty sure they know exactly what story they want to tell from the beginning, especially with the way that Tom Holland's been talking about the way that this movie was written.
Sure, sure. I mean, look, I don't know. I've I've gone back and forth about like these next two films because like I'm just really nervous because these are two nerve-wracking films that they're making. We don't know what's going to happen with Avengers because it could just be
Yeah,
complete garbage if they butcher it. I doubt it because it is the Russos and they
yeah,
know how
the
to
Russo brothers better
balance.
pull through.
Well, they know how to balance a large scale cast and get them out there and make you care about them. Spider Man, I'm nervous about because they promise a street level story. They say they're going to do a street level story. It's what they set up in No Way Home. But we know from them in the past that they could easily pivot into a multiversal thing, and I don't want that. Like, it's not like I don't. Here's the. It's not that I don't want that. I'm perfectly fine doing a multiversal thing, but with Secret Wars right around the corner and Doomsday right around the corner, why wouldn't you just?
Well, and also we have the animated Spider-Man movies to bring us into the multiverse, to give us that multiversal Spider-Man. We don't need that in live action and in the animated universe, especially since we're going to be getting the new animated Spider-Man movie in 2027, which
Yeah,
is only a year after Brand New Day comes out. Also, did
yeah.
you see that they moved it up by like a week or something like that? They're like, we're releasing a week earlier. And it's like, brother, you've delayed it for like 7 years. So I don't think this is something that we're going to be celebrating until
I'm
I'm
about to
in
say,
butts in seats watching the movie in theaters. And even then, they're going to open up the scene and then there's just going to be an I'm sorry sticky note on there. We delayed it again.
no,
That's what I'm assuming is going to happen. It's going
we're
to
gonna
be one big prank.
we're gonna sit down in our seats and we're gonna get like a mass notification. Yeah, sorry guys, we know tickets are on sale and we know we already did all this work. Uh how does 2032 sound, everybody? How are we feeling about that year?
And then we burn the theater to the ground.
No, that's
Ryan
exactly
on
what would happen.
Marvel.
Burn it to the ground because that's on them. Um I don't know. Let's move on. Let's actually get into this. Let's get into the episode. Because I'm all Spider-Man out. I've said enough about it.
Fair enough.
Like there's only so much I can say about it because I'm like I don't know, and I don't want to be like mean or like nitpicky about it because we don't know anything. It's all speculation.
Yeah, we're
We're
going to be
going off.
speculating about
We're going off of a casting that was announced, and that started the whole downward spiral for us. So
we're going to be talking about Spider-Man news. The way I will say to end off this conversation, the way that they're handling the leaks, like purposeful leaks of this movie and feeding us information gets me very curious for how they plan to either subvert our expectations or if this is just to garner trust with the public so
Sure.
that when they meet our expectations of, okay, we're really excited for this. Because again, Tom Holland has mentioned that he actually read fan feedback to determine how this movie was going to be made. Are they leaking things like this information purposefully so that they can see fan reception and then change things? I hope that that's not what they're doing because while I do appreciate fan feedback, the fans are not always correct. I think that is something that everyone needs to accept. I accept it. I'm not always right with my opinion about Marvel, about Spider-Man, about media in general. Why? I'm not a filmmaker. I'm not an actor. I know Carson's an actor, but he's not a film actor. Like, we're not people in the industry. So we might have our opinions and we might know what we want to happen. But I do hope that Tom Holland in the studio is balancing the user feedback and the, I guess, betterment of the story in a way that makes sense and not just trying to give us a fan fest. Because what a fan fest is Endgame. And that is a very good movie. It is my favorite movie of all time, not because it's the best movie ever made. I think that can be universally accepted, but because it gave me exactly what I wanted out of the fan fest. But again, through doing that, you sacrifice it being an actually like really good movie to its core.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, all right, let's do this. Episode 31. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of the Nerdy Nimrods podcast, the only podcast in the world where your two favorite Nimrods talk all things nerdy. I am your wonderful host this evening, Carson, aka Juggernaut, here with my forever co-host.
Brandon, aka Parrotfish.
And today we are talking not one, definitely not three, but two episodes of Peacemaker. Shut up! I'm doing something. I'm doing something. And then we're also talking about a movie that I was really anticipated and wanted to see just based off the trailer. That being the Smashing Machine. Brandon, how we feeling? How we doing, bud? I haven't talked to you in like a week.
Yeah, it's been a week. I have to be careful, but let's just say things with my current mode of employment have been interesting. I'll leave it at that. If you know, you know. You should be able to put two and two together on the field that I work in based on current world events. But it's been an interesting week, and we'll leave it at that.
Fun. I have been out late. I have not slept very well.
You do that to yourself every week because it's Halloween Horror Nights and you have no self
Well,
control.
no, that was just last night. Last night I don't get a pass. The few nights before I just genuinely couldn't sleep, and I don't know why. Like I just struggled to.
Body to stay up late. That's your problem.
AC in my car broke down. Trying to fix my AC, and as a delivery driver to make ends meet, that's a horrible combination. And in a hot area. Other than that, my soul's I'm still alive. I'm still breathing. My soul's still intact. So I think that's all I can ask for.
Fair enough. Fair enough, brother.
Let's get into something because I texted you after the not this past episode but the episode prior. I can't wait another week.
I
Let's
know.
talk.
I know you're very excited.
Let's talk about these episodes of Peacemaker because before I let you start, I'm just saying this. This solidified that I prefer season 2 to season 1 immediately.
Okay.
Like, well, I was already on that side of the fence too, mind you. But
I know you were. I know.
It's solidified it for me. You can give me one episode or two episodes, however you want to go about it. Just give me your thoughts on the past two episodes.
Before we get into this, big spoiler warning. We will be talking all things spoilers for Peacemaker's episode 6 and 7, as well as the Smashing Machine.
Yeah.
We do not give non-spoiler talks. We don't segment this out. We just kind of yap because we have no self-control. So if you have not seen, I do put timestamps. However, I will say there will not be timestamps between episode 6 conversation and episode 7 conversation. It will just be a Peacemaker conversation because I'm going to talk about both of these episodes kind of fluidly because in my opinion, this is just one long episode. It really is. It is cut like one long episode. It is acted like one long episode. The other episodes previously did kind of have like a little bit of a good ending off point. with this one, yes, it had a good ending off point, but it kind of flowed more fluidly than the other episodes, in my opinion. So I'm just going to talk about both at once.
Sure.
And so, spoiler warning is over. Skip this if you don't want to hear Peacemaker and go to our Smashing Machine review, or go watch Peacemaker and come back, because getting into my thoughts, yeah, these were two really damn good episodes. These were both really good. Episode 6 was a bit of a setup episode. Like we were talking about this before we hit record, that episode 6 is a very character focused episode. It's very focused on not building out the relationships, but kind of, James Gunn mentioned, of like giving you a direction as to where the characters are going to go. And I do think that it does that. It's not really until the end of that episode that you actually get into the big reveal of, yes, this is Earth X. This is in fact Nazis won World War II. We all called it. It was the most obvious thing in the world. I think the way that they revealed it was actually kind of funny, with like, the name of the episode is Ignorance is Chris. And the whole like thing that they're trying to get at here is like, you don't care about the problems that you don't think about, which is an interesting dialogue to have, in sense of, yeah, Chris did not realize that he was in a Nazi world, because him as a white man isn't going to be affected. And then
The
I love,
reveal for it was so funny.
well, I just want to say, I love in episode 7 when Hardcore is like, brother, there's a mural of Hitler on the wall, and then Chris goes, oh, I didn't real how did I not notice that? It's like, okay,
You,
brother, okay,
you,
I can forgive not looking at the flag. I can forgive not knowing what the hell that book is on the desk. That's a mural of Hitler.
no, it spirals out of control because he goes from, what, you didn't notice the copies of Mein Kampf on every
Yeah,
desk, and he's like, I don't read in my universe. Why would I read in this universe? You don't notice how every male here has a mustache resembling that of Hitler? You didn't notice the mural? And he's like, how did I not notice that before? I'm like,
yeah.
gosh
It
darn
like
it.
slowly builds up, and then there's just a mural of Hitler, and I'm like,
It's,
oh,
it's a dead
okay.
giveaway. And it's right there. It's just a gigantic mural.
Because like
You're like, what
my
the
thought
heck?
process,
How do you
like,
not know?
to be fair, my thought process was, with the conversation we had previously on how we called it out to be Earth X, before even reading anything online, was, one, there has to be something wrong with this universe, and second, there's no minorities. Something feels off about the way that they're building up this world, and the fact of White Dragon being good, and knowing who White Dragon is, what would make him a good guy in the eyes of this universe? Well, if the universe was racist. So,
I guess he's Blue Dragon in this, or something. I don't know what they call him
yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah. Exactly. So, obviously we called it out, but I do love, like, for me, I'm like, okay, there are some things, and yeah, she's like, Hardcore starts out with the conversation, I'm like, there's no minorities, and Chris is like, no, there. Oh wait, no, you're right. Okay, okay. And
Uh-huh.
then it's like the mural of Hitler, and I was like, okay, Chris, I can forgive not seeing the flag or not knowing what the book is. That's a mural of Hitler. What the hell, brother? And
It's
then he's
right
right.
there. It's right at that wall that you've passed by like 70 different times. I mean,
Yeah,
come on, man.
but obviously the reveal was funny, but beyond just that, I just, my only problem with this episode is, with episode 6 and episode 7, is just how short they are. Like, that's my genuine problem with this season, and I'm not saying that season 1 wasn't the same way,
Oh no,
but
yeah, it had the same
there
problem.
are some things that I wish we were able to breathe on a little bit more, maybe explore the Sons of Liberty a little bit more, maybe explore the morality of what's going on. They're kind of just jumping to the chase a little bit and going, oh, it's Nazis, immediately we have to get out of here, and now we've ended that storyline. Now, we definitely haven't ended that storyline, because at the end of this, Keith lives, and Keith is
Yeah,
going to come back. Now, is he going to come back in episode 7, or are they setting it up for the future? That's where I don't know.
right.
That's where because we've already set up, we need to end the storyline with Rick Flag Sr., and then you also throw Keith into that conversation. Where does that leave us? Now, there were a lot of shocking moments in episode 7. There was a lot of, like, I don't want to say big reveals, but the watching Peacemaker, I don't want to say my other problem, but one thing that I definitely feel is they are kind of replaying a lot of the story beats from season 1, in terms of, Peacemaker having to get over the death of his family, and now he's having to watch them die again in front of him. But I'm not saying that's a problem. I think it actually makes sense for the direction that they're taking this season and why Peacemaker goes into this universe and why he needs to, I guess, realize one, his ignorance, but also more importantly, the flaws within his character and the flaws within other people. So I think it all makes sense. It was just a thing of like, man, we're doing this again. We just watched him die literally at the end of like White Dragon die at the end of last season, and now we're watching him die again. But they throw the interesting twist on there of, was he actually a Nazi?
I
Now,
don't think he was. I think he was a good. I think he was genuinely somebody who wasn't. But
well, and
we'll get into
I
that.
actually I really like the way that they used his character because it brings up the question of the morality of having to look the other way. Because his whole dialogue before he gets stabbed is, I don't agree with what's going on right now, but I have to fight the battles that are in front of me. I have to control what I can control.
Right.
Unfortunately, even with my suit, even with my powers, I can only do so much to change society as a whole. So I have to pick and choose the battles that I fight. I have to fight the monsters and protect the people. You can make the argument of, oh, well, all the people are Nazis, so kill them anyway. I don't love that argument. I don't. So that's why I actually really like the way that, I guess, Blue Dragon handles the situation. Now, obviously, not fighting against the Nazis is still a bad thing. He still
Sure.
should have probably done a little bit more than he did, but it does open up the question for Chris and opens up the same trauma of, okay, my dad in the other universe was a Nazi. Oh, my dad in this universe is also a Nazi. I think that makes it a little easier for him. But then you have to throw the twist on there of, was he actually a Nazi?
It's
I
not
know I'm
even.
getting a
It's
lot
not
into
that.
the mean well, I
So
know I'm getting into a lot of the meat and potatoes on this. I liked both of these episodes a lot. We'll just go. We're clearly getting into the back and forth of this already, just because we both want to talk about this. But I did really like these episodes. I think my only thing is we talked about how James Gunn said that, oh, at the end of this episode, you'll know exactly where the rest of the season is going to go. First of all, James, there's one episode
no,
left.
I
Second of
no
all,
clue.
I have the exact opposite. Are you going to wrap up the Rick Flag? Are you going to wrap up the Keith storyline? Are you going to wrap up both? Are you going to wrap up none? Where is this going to go?
What is happening? What is going
Oh,
on here?
I was rambling so much that I could not hear it, but I hear it now. You got a zombie breaking into your
Yeah,
house.
for whatever, I just hear things like scratching up against the wall, dropping things, and then I heard somebody run away. So I wonder if it was just my brother, just like trying to mess with me.
Probably.
I was just so confused. I was like, what are we doing here? What's happening? I'm like, am I about to like die to an earthquake? Whatever. Okay. I'm not.
Yes, the first recorded earthquake in Florida history.
I don't know, man. It was the first thing that came to my mind. I'm not going to give my general thoughts because my general thoughts are, for the most part, they are the same as yours. It's very slight differences in outlooks on some of them. But I already kind of gave it when I said I think it's better than season one.
So let's get into it. Where do you want to start off with the
Let's start with the death of
Blue Dragon?
Blue Dragon. I almost called him White Dragon. I was like, no, it's not
Well,
white.
I
What is it?
kept
It's
calling
blue.
him White Dragon, so
White Dragon, Blue Dragon, whatever. I'm
White
like,
Dragon. Chris's dad.
so you brought up the idea that it was in both universes, like, oh, my dad's not to here, my dad's not to here, and I guess that's okay. I want to look at it this way because there was this very significant line of dialogue that was dropped that, and the way he was acting towards Chris makes me realize I get what they were trying to do. They were paralleling the relationship of Chris and his dad from the first season with this season. And maybe it was the same thing with Keith too, because you notice how Keith acts in the moment too. In this season, Peacemaker's dad wants to let Chris go because he believes that his son, at the end of the day, even though he loved his son, and he did, and even said that's the first time he ever says those words is "I loved my son,"
Yeah.
but he was a horrible human being, or he was this, or he was drunk, or he was this, or he was that. He was going to wind up doing it to himself anyway, and he was just going to let him go because he believes it was an accident. Those are the actions of something Chris would believe, or Chris. They are paralleling the relationship of Augie and Chris from the first season and then reversing it here. Now it may not be, oh, the sons are the way that they are because of their father, but maybe the father is the way that he is because of his sons.
I think that's an interesting way to look at it. I can see where you're coming at with that. Well, because yes, it is a parallel in the sense of in our main universe, White Dragon was the bad guy. He was
Yes.
the evil one, he was the piece of shit. His sons were not. His sons were the good guys. They were well, granted Keith didn't get to live very long to become a good guy, but you
Right.
could presume that he would probably be more similar to Chris. Now in
Right.
this universe, it is Chris's dad. It's Augie. Augie is the, I guess, good guy. He is the trying moral high. Again, it's complicated to call him a good guy, but gooder guy in
Well, the
this
thing we
universe.
don't know. He never specifically says where his stance is beyond the fact of I like he does say like I
I
don't
think he
necessarily
makes it pretty clear in the sense of the dialogue of I do what I can, but he calls his son a piece of shit. He doesn't agree with it. He calls the cops crooked. Like I think it's pretty clear. Yes, he doesn't necessarily say fuck the Nazis, but he does make it very clear on the sense of I don't agree with everything that they're doing at the very least, but I only have so much power, so I'm gonna fight the battles that I can fight. The monsters, the things the cops can't handle, even though he doesn't agree with what the cops are doing.
right. And again, that's what I'm saying. Like I just think that he may have been branded one because he's on Earth X, so everybody on there technically would be, but I don't think he was, and that's why the line when Chris says I don't think he was a Nazi hits so much harder because
Yeah.
he truly did find a good version of his dad, and he just watched him die in front of him. The first time he killed his own father, and he had to do it himself because he was a despicable piece of trash who was going to kill him and never once said the words I love you. In this universe, he got that and he got the best variation of his father that he could have ever asked for. And instead of him being willing to put him down himself, he didn't do that. He's murdered right in front of him, which makes it more difficult. So I actually don't think it was a waste of time. I think that that whole
Oh, I
scene.
never said it was a waste of time. I wanna make it clear, I never said it was a
Oh,
waste
okay,
of
okay.
time. Yeah,
Well,
no, no, no.
I just think that that seems like very important and it highlights the importance of where Chris's arc is at now too, because
Well, and
he also never gets over the death of his brother. He never really
yeah,
does from season one. He might get over the death of his father, and maybe not even really. He doesn't ever really do that either, because even though he acknowledges that he's a horrible human being, he never really gets over it to a certain extent. Again,
no,
that's the
he
whole
it
reason
still
that this
haunts him,
happens.
especially since he's the one that killed him.
Right.
It definitely is a he hasn't gotten over it yet, and it clearly still haunts him. We actually see the flashbacks of him killing his dad in episode 7. But I think the death that actually shows Chris's character growth to me more, well, I don't actually maybe it's not growth, maybe it's sameness, but also like growth in a way is when Keith is being stabbed. And he
Yeah.
has one of my favorite lines, both in delivery and just in weight, of what the fuck is wrong with us? While they're all ganging up on Keith and stabbing him and just mutilating him. And then he tells everyone to stop. They stop. And then one of the reasons why that's one of my favorite, it might be my favorite scene in Peacemaker, is you then start flashing to everyone's faces and the realization of what they're doing.
Right.
You see hardcore and the horror wash over her. You see the other, like you see Economos is tied up, but you see Adebayo and the horror that washes over her, and the like realization of okay, yes, these people are monsters, but what the fuck is wrong with us? What were
Right.
we just doing? Like
Right.
you didn't have to go that far. I think is the point that Chris is making in the sense of yes, he's evil, but you didn't have to restrain him and stab him like a pinata in the most inhumane way possible.
Yeah. I think that I think that there's a lot to unpack with just that whole bit alone.
Yeah, like we
And
barely even talked about episode 6, but it's
well, yeah, to be fair, when you start with that, it's hard because when you start with episode 7, you kind of cover everything in episode 6.
true, true.
We can go back a little bit into episode 6 and talk about something else that I want to talk about, which is I like how the whole season Vigilante keeps toying with the idea of I wonder what my alternate personality is going to be like. I wonder if he's this. I wonder if he's that. How different is he going to be for me? And it turns out he's the exact same, like down to the outfit
Yep.
and everything. And I'm just like, okay, that's funny. What's
I
also funny, and something I realized, is
sense.
episode 6 was the first time we saw Vigilante in his outfit. That is the first
Yes,
time in this
of this
entire
season,
season
correct.
that we
Because
have
then he
seen him in
doesn't
his
take it
outfit.
off. Then he doesn't
Right,
take he takes the helmet off, I guess, but
right. I there was something I read online, and it wasn't even that I read it online. Like James Gunn full on said this. He had an original idea for what he wanted the reveal for the house, for Adrian's house to be. And he said originally he wanted it. Did you know what I'm about to say? Did you hear about this?
no, I don't, but I'm just thinking about the fact that it is just a drug lord underground.
So Economos doesn't have a role to play in this alternate universe. We don't see Economos at all.
No.
Um, the
Well, we do.
way James Gunn.
It's tied up and
Well, no,
get
no, no. I mean, like the alternate universe Economos. We don't see.
oh, like the old okay, yeah.
James Gunn had an idea, and he didn't do it obviously because when you walk in the house, you see Adrian's mom and his father and his both his parents. You know, they're just sitting there. They're watching TV. Everything's normal. The original idea is that Adrian, our universe Adrian, was going to walk in and see alternate universe X Adrian having Economos banging his mom, and I thought to myself, why didn't they do that? That would have been really clever and funny.
No, it wouldn't have!
It would have been really
No!
funny.
That would have been terrible! The shit that goes on in James Gunn's head sometimes, no wonder we get Peacemaker. Peacemaker is just whenever James Gunn smokes too much weed. That's what he goes to write. He writes Superman when he's having a nice cocktail, he's sitting there with his wife and having a chill day. When he's doing shrooms, that's when he writes Peacemaker. Because what the fuck?
Well, and even talking about episode 6, like, okay, I know I'm moving on from Adrian here a little bit, but like, let's talk about this. Does James Gunn just want every man in this cast to like lie with his wife or something? Because, like, what the heck, man? You have Flag Jr. in episode 4, who's just like, okay, whatever, I guess, but I'm like, Gunn, that's your wife. You really want to subject her to that? And you have a full-on shower moment with Chris, and I'm like, why? What are you trying to do here? Like, what is your end goal? You don't get it. I'm just like, what is going on in your head, Gunn? Like, I don't fully understand. I mean, it's fine. It doesn't harm me, but like, I look at that scene and I go, huh?
Why?
It's just because, like, I know it's his wife, and I'm like, why would you want this to happen? Wouldn't you try to do anything against that?
Nah. James Gunn's a cuckold,
I
confirmed.
I guess whatever. Um, I'm trying to think. Oh, episode 6 had probably one of my favorite scenes, if not my favorite scene, which is the dialogue between Harcourt and Chris. I think
Okay, yeah.
that I think that it has to be one of the best moments they've ever written in the
You're
show.
talking
It's
about
just
specifically the line of dialogue at Argus right before the reveal?
Yeah, it's just that whole scene when they're in there. It's like a 4 or 5 minute long scene, but it's just them going back and forth, and it is acting at its rawest, and it really does show off well. Um, there, we have not gotten a scene like this in Peacemaker, probably ever, where it's
I mean,
just
I think the
too.
closest is that scene in episode 7.
It is. It is
Legitimately.
that is the closest thing we've gotten because Peacemaker up until that point, and this is why I like this season so much. Up until that point, they've had emotional moments, but they only resonated with Chris in the first season, and that had to do with the idea of he's killing and putting down his own father.
Yeah.
Mern's death, like I even said this in our season 1 recap, I never really felt anything from Mern because Mern never really gave us anything super to care about because he was obviously a
He was a butterfly, and
it
he
was
was
a
supposed to
butterfly.
move the plot along.
Right. He was just there to move the plot along. Now we get emotional impact, and this season really allows us to feel it. And I love the idea of where this relationship is. I love the idea that we just we get a scene like this where it's competently well written, it's acted to perfection, and I just it's just well
Well,
done.
and we also get the payoff of that in episode 7 with the motorbike scene where she lays her
Sure.
head on Chris's shoulders after the trauma of running away from Argus and being chased by the cops. In my eyes, that scene is the payoff to that episode 6 conversation in terms of, hey, what are you doing? I'm broken. I'm also broke. Like that whole line of dialogue, which I agree. great scene, absolute great line of dialogue, and then we pay it off in a way of hardcore starting to warm back up to Chris and realizing that
Right.
maybe I don't want to say maybe I do need someone, but maybe it's okay to open up to someone who is also very clearly broken and in pain.
Well, it's not even that. The really hard thing to watch about this relationship, and yeah, it was thrown into us this season, but it's something that didn't have to be thrown into the season, is the fact that she had a relationship with Flag Jr. And that's
Yeah.
like the only thing that's keeping, like, yes, it's hard for her to open up, but then there's the added factor of that, which it's just like,
It
it's really
complicates
hard
the
to watch.
waters. Yeah, it complicates the waters, but at the same time, it's not like Rick Flag Jr. was all that good of an upstanding citizen. Like, yes, she loved him, but I think we got a lot of nuance in the way that she talked during the funeral scene about her
Yes,
views on Flag Jr. I think that was their way of setting up on how it makes sense that she would be able to forgive Chris and open back up to him in terms of like, again, he's a serial womanizer. Yes, she cared about him, but also there was a lot of complications with their relationship. And
sure,
she understood that better than Senior does. That's why Senior is now throwing the bigger hissy fit about Chris killing his son. And I
right.
actually think that it's going to be interesting the way that they handle this because I do think that in this last episode of episode 8, which will come out in a few days, we're
Yes,
going to get the Flag is going to try and kill Chris again. He has no
yes,
justifiable reason though, and I think that's where it's going to be interesting on what characters stand up and say something. Is it going to be your Economos? Is it going to be your Tim Meadows character? Is it who like are we going to have a scene where the characters kind of stand up for Chris in the sense not for Chris, but necessarily in the eyes of justice like Economos did with booking him?
so this is going to be a rarity. I'm not going to talk about what I think the next episode's going to be.
Okay.
That's not because I'm petty and I don't want to. It's because I genuinely don't know. Like, for
I,
all I know,
fair.
Chris may never even make it to Argus.
Yeah,
There could be
that's
something that goes wrong that he never even makes it to Argus. Chris could end up in prison. Like, that could literally just be the end of the season, is him ending up in prison. Again, these are all things that I don't know. And this is the first time I've ever like, and this is where it's actually like, this is why I love season 2. This is the first superhero thing this year in which I've sat here and gone, I have no idea where they're going. At the end of Thunderbolts, you can guess where they're going. Obviously, the Fantastic Four are coming in. They're setting up Doomsday. At the end of Fantastic Four, Doctor Doom comes in and is standing in front of Richards. You can guess where they're going with that. Brave New World, you guess where they're going with that. You can guess with every superhero property that was been released this year. You can guess what direction they're going in. This is the first time, honestly, in not even just this year, years, in which I've sat and gone, I have no idea where they're going with this.
Yeah,
Uh
that's totally fair. I
no,
do think that
Deadpool. I'm sorry, Deadpool was the
yeah,
other
but
one.
Deadpool was not really setting anything up. It was
It
kind of
wasn't.
a more self-enclosed story.
We know they're
And,
gonna go somewhere with it, but right, like yeah, I get what you're
yeah.
saying.
No, but I do actually I understand where you're coming from. I think the only things that are clear what they're setting up is the Lex Luthor stuff. And that's only because
Yes,
they've already announced the Man of Tomorrow storyline. Now, if they didn't announce the Man of Tomorrow storyline, it would lead to the speculations of us being able to guess that that's the direction that they're going of a not good guy Lex, but a Lex who is having to bargain for his life. Also, we have another Superman cameo in here. I can't remember his name, but
yeah, the guy
one of the
who,
main scientists who is
right,
in charge of the portal
yeah.
stuff, he appears and is the one that actually tracks down Peacemaker in the portal. So we're very clearly, and that's actually one thing I really want to give James credit for is the ability to tie everything together so well without feeling cameo-y or forced. You can make the argument that the Lex thing feels like a cameo, but the way that they justify it, I think is done way better than a lot of what Marvel has had tried to do with
Sure.
breaking. Now, I will say recently, past Marvel did a really good job of balancing, in my opinion, but they also, past Marvel didn't have the TV shows until more recently that would tie them into the smaller projects. So the way that James Gunn is interweaving these plot lines in a way that feels like a natural progression of a world and characters, I want to give credit to. I think it's actually really interesting and done very well just from the two properties that we've gotten. Now, I'm not saying that that's not going to fall apart down the line and get too overly complicated, but the
I
way that we've gotten with just these two properties, I really like it.
I about to say, because I want you to remember what the comment you just said, because I can't wait for next week there to just be an unprecedented Superman cameo with Clark Kent coming in and saying, I don't know, it's pizza time and flying off and punching
Well,
somebody and
here's the thing. The
that no, like, that's a Spider-Man reference. I'm sorry.
no. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. However, the way that they did the Lex cameo and this scientist cameo feels more like a yes, they all live in the same world together. Like Marvel, in a lot of the ways that they've done things, they make it feel like a cameo. Not always. They've done some really good crossovers before. I think the biggest which that I can think of off the top of my head is the Bucky Wakanda stuff. I think that that makes total sense and feels like a natural way the world would work,
Sure.
but they don't always go that well, and sometimes it feels a little bit more like a pop-up cameo. I think another example would be an Iron Man in Spider-Man. I think that's another example of a lived-in world where, of course, these characters are gonna naturally interact with each other.
Right.
With the way that they're doing this, it feels like it gives me that same feeling of breathing, living world as opposed to you're watching movies with characters that sometimes show up in other people's properties. It's like, of course, Lex is going to help out with this. Of course, they're going to call the like my first, like, not my first thought, but some people's first thought might be we literally just had portals and experts on portals. Why don't they just call the experts on portals? Well, they did. And that's exactly what happened because that's exactly what they would do in this world, in an actual living, breathing world. Now, if they throw an impromptu forced Superman cameo, my opinion could easily change. But I think with the way that they've done it right now with the Lex Luthor and this scientist, and
Yeah.
to be fair, also Rick Flag Sr., because Rick Flag Sr. has also appeared in other things before he appeared here, and they're tying
Yeah.
him in more naturally with Argus and the concept of Argus, similar to the TVA and Marvel. I'd put them on the same pedestal in terms of the way that they're being handled right now. So I don't know. All I'm getting at is I appreciate the way that they're making the world feel lived in.
I can't wait for there to be just an unprecedented cameo of like Batman or something, and Batman just like comes in, says I'm vengeance. This is how we get the reveal that it's gonna be Robert Pattinson or something. He just steps through.
Well,
Who are you? I'm vengeance, and he just beats up a couple guys and goes off. That's how the show's ending. No,
to be
I
fair, we've already gotten our Green Lantern and Hawkgirl cameo in what, the first or second episode? Like,
that's true. I will say well, even that's more for world building too, because that wasn't unprecedented. That was generally just
exactly.
for world building. Um, the only prediction I will make for the end of the show, because I just think it makes logical sense, is maybe we won't see him. Maybe we won't see who's playing him. I'm not saying that's what we're getting. We're gonna get some sort of tease that Brainiac is coming at the end of this show. I think that's it.
I
Because if they're setting up Man of Tomorrow, that's more than likely what they're gonna do.
I would not be a big fan of that. I'm gonna be honest with you. I feel like that would be the exact problem that I'm talking about of forced cameos, because teasing Brainiac at the end of a Peacemaker, the only reason I say that, well, actually, no, there's multiple reasons I say that. I don't know why I said the only reason. There's main two reasons is one, that would be the forced cameos that I have a problem with, in my opinion. The second is it makes way more sense to set up a Brainiac for Man of Tomorrow in a Supergirl than it would in a Peacemaker.
Oh, that's I know. I forgot about Supergirl. Never mind. Forget that I said that. I completely forgot about Supergirl being a thing.
Yeah, you could easily set it up in Supergirl because we know that Supergirl is going to be exploring the galaxy a lot more. She might even be the reason why Brainiac becomes aware of our universe or our Earth.
the
So,
yeah the again the only thing I could see here is them pulling like maybe like a Captain Marvel where you see like something come through that's a Brainiac related item, but it isn't like actually like a cameo. It's just like an inkling, like okay, you see this, and that's like meant to represent Brainiac. That's like something I could see them doing at the end of the show now. I don't like it, but again, it all kind of dissipated once you said Supergirl. I was like, oh no, wait, that's right. I forgot that was existing.
Yeah, I think it makes way more sense to set up Brainiac and Supergirl.
Other thing I could see them doing, and this would be a post-credit scene thing, and that's why I wouldn't be so mad about it being like a guilty cameo present thing of that because it's a post-credit scene, would be something to do with Lobo, which would set up Supergirl.
I only agree with you because I think it'd be really funny to see a 5-second clip of John Cena and Jason Momoa interacting on screen as their characters.
Yeah. That would never happen for Peacemaker, but man.
No, it wouldn't. But I'd only be okay with it because that'd be very funny.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think that with again, it's so hard to honestly, like, it's so easy to talk about these 2 episodes, but it's also so difficult because we don't know what the full picture is in a way that is, I don't think unprecedented, but again, specifically these past 4 episodes. Okay, actually, I'm going to stop my line of dialogue right there. There's one more major thing that we can talk about unless you have anything else you want to riff off.
No, go ahead.
What are your thoughts on Judo Master and his role in episode 7?
It was fine. I think in episode 7 it was used pretty well and they gave him some more depth, but there really isn't anything for Judo Master still where I'm like, oh yeah, that it's Judo Master. You're gonna hate me when I say this. I feel the same way about Judo Master that I feel about Flurry, which is that they're fine. That's it.
I'm not gonna argue with you. Like I'm not a big. I was not a huge Judo Master fan in season 1, only because of the amount of times that they fake defeated him and he came back. It kind of became an annoyance to me. I liked him as an introduction to a counter for Chris because it's literally the polar opposite. You have this big, hulking John Cena character who fights with guns and weapons, and then you bring in a very tiny, still buff, but tiny character who fights with their fists. It is very clearly a cancellation and a polar opposite to Chris. I thought that was a really interesting introduction as a counter.
Yes.
Now, he became annoying, not because of the way that he's acted. It's just because why did we bring him back 7 times? Like every single episode in season 1 basically felt like oh, we're bringing him back. Oh, we're bringing him back. Oh, you tased him? Oh, he's back. Oh, you shot him? Oh, he's back and barely has a scratch. It's like, okay, I'm getting sick and tired of this.
Yeah.
Now, with his role in season 2, they're trying to basically make him less of a bad guy. They're trying to make him redeemable, is what they're doing. They're trying to make him redeemable with that scene at the end where the Argus is lined up and he gives the nod for, okay, yes, Chris is telling the truth, even though he's clearly not telling the truth. And trying to at least throw Chris and his friends a bone because of what they went through very briefly together in the other world. And I think that all of that is good. I think it makes sense. I mean, obviously, Judo Master was there for watching the scene with Chris's dad and kind of having his mind open to the trauma that this character has gone through. So it makes sense for him to throw him a bone. I don't know, like the Scrabble scene with Adebayo and things like that. It was cool. Like
the only thing they do right is the one line at the end when he agrees with Chris, which isn't the truth technically. It's like when Chris gives up the portal and he gets arrested, he spares Chris by agreeing with him. That's
he spares Chris's friends, not Chris.
He spares Chris by sparing his friends.
Fair enough.
That's what I meant. And that's why I'm saying he's on like the same level of Flurry right now, because Flurry had the same level of like a redemption where he looked at our Economos earlier saying you did the right thing by booking your friend because he knows that he would have been dead. So it's the same thing, really. It is. That's my thoughts on it. I don't have much more to say about these episodes. We've really broken down all those episodes. I guess the only thing we didn't talk about was John, but that's because John is just John in these episodes. He's tied to a chair in episode 7, and he walks around the house in episode 6, which is fine. That's his character. He got to have a really fun bit moment with Eagly. Whenever he's trying to, Eagly, Why would I want a piece of yarn? Don't bring me the yarn.
Yeah, it is like I had my I was very outspoken on my problems with the direction that they were taking Economos' character in the beginning of this season. Now that we're almost towards the end, I'm a little bit more forgiving on it, but it does still feel like Economos is lacking the character development that the entire rest of the cast is getting.
Yeah,
He feels like the one character that had one moment of standing up, but at the same time, that's not new. Economos did that in the last season. Economos is I don't want to call him the Rock, but he's only the Rock in the sense of he's the only one who's not changing. And maybe that's purposeful and maybe there's going to be a payoff for that. I don't know, but my problem is Adebayo's having growth in trying to either regain or move on from her relationship and move into her own career. You have I guess technically Vigilante also doesn't have much growth, but that's never been Vigilante's character. But then you also have Hardcore, who's grappling with her relationship with Chris and what she wants out of life and forgiving herself for her own actions and forgiving Chris and
sure.
moving on. Then you have Chris himself, who obviously we've already talked about all of the stuff that he's going through. Economos is kind of just, I don't want to say he's just there, but he did feel a lot more like a bit character these past 2 episodes. And I do wish we got a little bit more substance out of him. Maybe we will. I don't know what they can give him in this last episode that they haven't already given him because the moments of growth for Economos are very much just moments that we also got in season 1.
Yeah, we're not getting much more with him except for maybe like an emotional moment at the end, which I'm like, okay, that's fine. But again, I feel like Economos is also one of those characters you don't need much more for him. He is a side character, and he's not like an Adebayo side character. He's a lot more like Adrian, where Adrian doesn't really get that many emotional moments. John doesn't get that many emotional moments. They are there for humor, and then they're there to be a friend of the party,
Yeah.
which is also part of the reason why it will be really difficult if, let's say, there's a season 3, John or Adrian were to die or are killed off. Even in this last episode, if either are killed off, because even though they didn't have as many emotional moments, they are still a heartwarming presence in the show because they add
Yeah,
so much
it'll still be
to
a
the group.
yeah, it'll still be
Um,
a
it's
loss
just a
for
different.
sure.
It's just a different type of loss.
Yeah.
Um, I look. I guess wrapping up my thoughts. I look. I love the way this show that this season was handled. I just think it's really really well done. I think it's gotten better as the season's gone on. Especially knowing where we started. Like it was really good in the beginning, but knowing where we started with like a massive, again, I don't want to say the word, but Chris has like a party of sorts. Hey guys, so Brandon screwed up and now we
Okay, buddy. You said you wanted to. Okay, yes. Yes, we had technical difficulties again. Yeah, let's just get back into it. Carson, what are your final thoughts on?
everybody put Rip Brandon in the chat. Rip Brandon in storage. Yeah, final thoughts.
Ran out of storage.
Final thoughts. I said in the beginning, I think season 2 is better than season 1. I think that this season just offers a lot more emotional value than season 1 did. Um, I think as far as a story goes, it's funny because it's a multiverse story, and the biggest thing within the past few years is, do we really need a multiverse story? Is it really that good? And this show currently is proving to me, yes, it's worth every second to tell a multiversal story that's on this level. The episodes have constantly gotten better as each one goes on. I think the only time I would say no was maybe episode 4, maybe. And that's what because that's what I originally had said. And I think that it everything complements itself so well. And
Yeah.
there's at least each episode, there's at least one scene that you can walk away going, that's a standout scene from this entire show, which is a really good thing. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Go ahead and wrap it up for yourself if you'd like.
Yeah, no, I've definitely I don't this is the hard part. I don't know if I'm ready to say that I enjoy season 2 more than season 1. I will say though, I do think episode 7 is probably my favorite episode of the show. I think that I'm ready to stand on in terms of saying which season is better. I want to see them as whole pictures. However, you brought up the whole multiversal story. This is technically a multiversal story, but I don't really view it as a multiversal story like a Doctor Strange multiverse of madness. This is
Right.
you're using the multiverse as a way to forward the character development of our main cast, as opposed to we're going to other like you're not universe hopping. You're going to one other universe, and they're doing it in a very controlled manner that I can appreciate. So
Right.
I think that I'm still not as strong on the earlier episodes, which is why I think I'm still on the fence. If all the episodes were the quality of these last 3 episodes, then yes, season 2 is better. I still have my thoughts on the first episodes that yes, some have changed because of the direction that they've taken the characters, but some of it still holds up. So, I'm waiting to see the full picture to say which one I enjoy more, but I will say these past 3 episodes, especially episode 7 and to a degree episode 6 have been really strong episodes.
Yeah. I'm smiling
Why are
right
you
now
smiling?
because I'm really excited about this next thing.
Okay.
Let's change topics and let's talk about a movie that I was really interested in seeing, The Smashing Machine.
Yep.
A
Dwayne "The
trailer.
Rock"
It's
Johnson's new movie.
I'm not done. I'm not done. A trailer that showed me a glimpse of what this movie could be, with a director at the helm whom I thoroughly enjoy. Brandon, please give me your thoughts on The Smashing Machine, and be very, very careful with the next words you say.
I will start off right off the bat by saying, don't worry. This is not going to turn into our shit conversation. God, I'm so ashamed of our conversation. That was such a bad episode last week.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't that it was a bad episode. It was that we had differentiating views, and so we were just in competition with it. Like that's like the first time we've ever been like in competition with each other. Like, no, it's so stupid. What are you doing? You know, that's the first time we've ever been in that like situation. So I actually don't
Yeah.
think it's bad. It was just new and different. We were both like, what's happening here? What do we do? Where do we go from here?
Well, I think competition is good. I think we were both just not in the mood to articulate our thoughts to the best of our ability and why we disagreed with each other. I think
Right.
that's where I was like, I looked back at our conversation, was like, ooh. Anyways, Smashing Machine. I went in with zero expectations. I will admit, I am not the biggest The Rock fan. I don't think he is an amazing actor. He's pretty one note in a lot of the roles that he plays. He plays a very brooding comedic character. I
Right.
don't even say brooding. I only say brooding because a part of his comedy is the fact that typically he is the biggest guy on set. He plays a
Sure.
lot with Kevin Hart, and Kevin Hart, obviously, very different build than The Rock. So they play to
Right.
that comedy a lot. And I think some of his movies are good. I think he's funny in a lot of his roles, but a lot of it's one note. There's been a lot of conversation online of who's the best actor turned wrestler, the two biggest ones in conversation right now. You have Dave Bautista and John Cena. Did this movie change my mind on that? Is The Rock now my favorite wrestler turned movie star? No. However, I think he did a really good job in this movie. I think the reason he was able to do such a good job with this movie and with his role is because this is the closest to himself he's ever played in a role that I've seen. He's playing a wrestler. The Rock got his start in wrestling. So he already knows a lot of the ins and outs of how to play the fights, how to play the character, how to give a little bit of nuance to the emotions that a wrestler would feel going through the emotions that he is going through. So, credit where credit's due. I think The Rock does give a pretty strong performance with this role. I don't think it's like Emmy Award nominee, like, or Emmy Award winning role, but I still think he gives a good performance. The one who really steals the show is Emily Blunt. She absolutely steals the show with this. She does have a genuinely raw emotional performance with a lot of her scenes. I do think she was a very big standout. Obviously, she was given a lot to work with. I actually, before you get into your thoughts, I'll cut myself off here. I want to know how, well, I'll continue my thoughts and then we'll end it off, but I want to know how much you know about this. Is a true story. I knew nothing going in about the actual story behind these characters. So everything was a big reveal to me. And I really enjoyed going in as blind as possible because when twists happen, like he loses that fight and doesn't even go to fight his best friend because that's the way the trailer set this up. And I actually really enjoyed and felt subverted. I was actually like, "Oh wow, that's a big decision." Obviously, it's not the decision of the movie, it's the decision of the way that it happened in real life, but the way that the filmmakers and especially the trailers brought it up, I was actually really happy because I was a little afraid that the trailers gave away a little too much in terms of, okay, we're going to deal with his addiction, we're going to deal with some of his struggles, and then he's going to fight his best friend. That's not the direction the movie goes, and I really appreciate that and the way that they set it up. Now, I do have my problems with this movie. I think that this is an interestingly paced movie, and that's why I'm curious to see on how much you can add to the conversation in terms of how this played out in real life. Because I do wish that this is a 2 hour movie, so it is a good length of a movie. And I do think that they use that time to their advantage in certain moments. But there were also some of the emotional beats that I wish would have breathed a little more, especially in those earlier times. Like in the beginning of the movie, I wish that there were certain things that we kind of sat with a little more. Now, I do think that there are certain ones that we definitely sit with and we definitely feel the impact for and definitely had me actually like not emotional, like I wasn't crying, but like I felt uncomfortable. That's the other thing. This movie does an expert job of making you feel uncomfortable in all the, I guess, right ways. This is not a happy movie. This is a movie of someone going through addiction, someone struggling with an abusive relationship. This is someone who is struggling with being obsolete in the industry that they helped pioneer. And so you're seeing all of these emotions very raw and they're not comfortable emotions. And this movie does a very good job of making you feel uncomfortable. So I really appreciate those moments. And we do get to breathe in a lot of those moments. I do just wish there were a few scenes, especially with specifically the handling of his addiction in the early stages of his addiction, that we would have let breathe a little more to help carry home the weight of him getting over his addiction. Now, again, I'm not saying that that detracts from this movie whatsoever. I'm just saying that if I were to point out any flaws with the movie that I noticed right away, it would be okay, let this breathe a little more to give me the setup for when the emotional payoffs happen. They mean even more. But that's not saying that the emotional moments didn't hit for me because they definitely did. So I think overall, I was surprised by how much I enjoyed this movie. I don't know if it'll reach my top 10 necessarily, but I absolutely did not feel like this was a waste of time. I'm very happy that I saw this movie. I think that yeah, I think that this movie is getting overhated. A lot of the critics are pretty rough on this movie, and I haven't watched the reviews, so I don't know what people are actually saying. But the ratings that I'm seeing and the little tidbits that I've heard, it seems like people are pretty negative, and I don't fully understand other than some of the problems that I brought up in terms of letting moments breathe a little bit more. And maybe The Rock doesn't bring home the best performance of all time, but this is exactly the performance I would have expected out of The Rock playing this role, so I'm pretty happy with it. But that's where I'll wrap up my general thoughts. Carson, if you want to go ahead and give your thoughts.
This is one of the best movies of the year. I'm starting with that. This is not your typical biopic, and I'm
Oh,
calling it a biopic because that's what it is. Um, this film opts for. I'm gonna use examples here. When you watch films like Bohemian Rhapsody, King Richard, I'm thinking about like a sports. I'm trying to think of sports biopics. Um, I'm just throwing out random biopics like Straight Outta Compton. This that. It's
yeah.
all about the group or the singularity person overcoming a drug addiction, and it's about how they made all this beloved music, or it's about their legacy of what they left behind, or this or that. This film opts to let that take the back seat and focuses on character and focuses on who he was as a person, and not so much the world that surrounds him. Everything, and when you look at it, that's what it sets up, and that's what it is.
Mhm.
Because anytime The Rock is on screen, first off, this is the best performance The Rock has ever given.
I think
It's
that's
not
fair.
it's not fair to say that anything else he's ever done has come close to this, because when you look at his past history, you have Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, you have freaking Black
Name a Kevin
Adam,
Hart movie and he's probably in
Red
it.
Notice, Red One, Rampage, Skyscraper, any of the Fast and the freaking Furious movies. Jumanji 2. There were two Jumanjis. Jungle Cruise. None of, also starring Emily Blunt, by the way. Um,
Yeah.
not once has he ever had an opportunity to show acting on this level. This is probably my favorite performance of the year so far. I just think that this film, its biggest thing that it's going to suffer from, and I don't know if you know this term, but there's something called Oscar bait. Have you ever heard of what that is? Do you know what that term
Yes,
is?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Where you
In
put a
terms of
high
trying to
profile
tailor
actors,
and yes.
you put high profile directors, budgeting this, all of it, and you think it's going to win, but it won't in every single category. You think it's going to sweep, but it won't. This is that film where, based on the trailers, you feel like it is, but it doesn't. The only thing I see in this film that will probably win is writing, because the writing of this movie is impeccable. It nails a toxic relationship from start to finish, just masterfully. The way that each scene is performed by Emily Blunt and I almost said John Cena, Dwayne Johnson, um, it's so incredibly natural, and it feels so real, and it's unlike anything I think we have gotten this year. There have been normal reactions and there have been heartwarming reactions. There have been, acting that's taken place that you feel good about. This is the first thing this year, other than honestly Sinners. Sinners was the only other film where I've gone, that's a normal human interaction. And like that's a raw human interaction. This film has it, and I could easily feel like this actually happened. Like this is like an actual thing that took place. And it's because of how
Well, it's because it is.
it is, but it's how normally the dialogue's written and how natural it's written and how normally and naturally it's performed. This is
Yeah,
not
I think
just
that's fair.
this is by far The Rock. Obviously, it's by far The Rock's best performance. Again, I already pointed out his past filmography. When you have to say it's this and Moana, there's a bit of a problem. Um, this just proved to me that The Rock has acting chops. And I don't think it's because, oh, this is, his type of role. He came from wrestling, so he understands all this. No, it's just because he's a darn good actor. And this film proves it, that when he has the right writing and he's not giving shit, like the past 50 movies that he's performed in the past 20 years, when he's not giving shit and he's not playing a comedy role, he actually is a good actor and he can do good. Um, you had mentioned at the beginning of this, and I'm only piggybacking off of this because you had mentioned it. You said of all the actors or wrestlers turned actors, you gave Batista, Cena, and Dwayne Johnson. Batista is my least favorite of those three. Just,
Interesting.
just
That's a lot of people's second. I think a lot of people put John Cena up there just because of like Peacemaker, really. That's his
it's
only major role
it's John
I can think
Cena
of that.
as my number one, and then it's Dwayne Johnson. I'm only saying this because Batista hasn't done anything, in my opinion, where it's on this level. He's still like John Cena now has had opportunities to give performances like this multiple times, and he's actually done it within the roles that he's played that maybe it isn't the best writing. So he's given all the effort and he's proven that he can be a good actor. Dwayne Johnson hadn't had that opportunity. Now has had that opportunity. Dave Batista has not had any opportunity yet. He's played Drax the Destroyer, which is good, and he's had lots of good heartwarming moments like this, but he has never had a role like this. And he still has yet to been given the opportunity to have a role like this. So that's where my ranking lands on that. The cinematography in this movie is just unique. And I love the way they use the office camera shots to make it feel more personal. They make it feel more just like human.
It's a
And
very
and you
artsy film.
It's
Let me
artsy,
say
and I
that.
love it. For reference, because I don't even
It's
know if you know this, this is
it's
the
very
same director.
A24 coded. That's
Well,
what I felt.
it's not that. This is uh this is the same director that did Uncut Gems. If you didn't realize,
Okay.
if you
I
didn't
didn't know.
realize, it's the same director who did Uncut Gems.
Makes
Um,
sense.
it look, I'm not gonna ramble on it more because I know you want to get to a back and forth about this.
Yeah.
Um, I just think that if the biggest complaint I may have is that maybe not pacing. This movie feels pretty fast paced. It's It's the fact that it feels weird because everything in his life is like the events that a normal biopic would to be based around is taking the backseat, and then his relationships are at the
Yeah.
center focus.
You're not
That
seeing
that
every fight and all the
yes,
big moments that people would care about. You're seeing the behind the scenes.
yes, and so I guess that would be the biggest flaw, but that's unfair to call it a flaw because it's also the best thing about this movie, in my opinion. It's part of the reason why it actually might be one of the best biopics just to come out recently ever. Because it does swing for the fences doing something different by allowing you to have those moments. I actually do think you get a chance to breathe too. Um,
I'm not saying you don't. I'm just saying that there were a few moments early on, specifically surrounding his addiction, that I wish we would have breathed on a little bit more. Like maybe a minute or two. Like not even major. Again, it's a minor complaint. Like I don't want to blow it out of proportion. There were just a few things early on during the setup phase that I was like, okay, we moved on a little faster than I wish we did. But then at the same time, like it didn't detract from when they paid it off. It was just it would have been nice, I guess is the best way to put it.
it's not a I wish you that this would have been different because it would have been better. It's just I wish they would have added this because it would have been nice to have like on top of it.
Kinda, yeah, that'd be the best way to describe it. So I don't wanna misrepresent it as saying I think it's a bad paced movie. I just think that if I had to
But
put there's
yeah,
there's there's one other thing that I forgot to mention in my like short thing, and we can start
we'll,
off with this because you
we'll get to it. Yeah,
mentioned it, getting into the back and forth. I do have one other problem with the movie, and maybe you can correct me. I'm not a wrestling fan, and I know that this isn't WWE. I know that this is not WWE.
UFC obviously.
This is UFC. Yeah, is I don't always like. We talked about the cinematography, and this is where I'm bouncing off of. The cinematography for most of this movie is very well done. It is very artsy. It adds to the emotion. It really adds to how uncomfortable the moments are. And I think that's where the cinematography really shines, is in its establishing shots and its moments of unease and the way that they focus on certain elements. The only thing that I wasn't as big of a fan of, and maybe this is just how wrestling works, is the way that some of the moments in the fights were shot. I don't love some of them. Maybe that's just me.
Ooh, yeah, I think that might just be you because I don't know what you're talking about.
I
You
just
saying
I
that?
don't know. It felt a little, I don't want to call it messy, but a lot of, and maybe this is purposeful, but a lot of the fights were very obstructed and the way that they shot them. And maybe that is done purposefully because, like we were talking about, the point isn't the fights, the point is the moments outside of the fights. The only reason I feel like having specific moments not be obstructed would have helped is leaning into how brutal these moments are and why they lead into him having the spiral that he does. Maybe that's just me, but there were certain shots that were like obstructed by the ring or obstructed by another person, and you're seeing the fight more in the background, and it's not as core of a focus. I just didn't love some of those decisions. I don't think it's bad. I feel like for me, it kind of detracted from the brutality of the moment by feeling like they were censoring themselves by not focusing in on the moment as much.
Yeah, I think that's just you because I do think that that's purposely done.
And maybe it
Purely
is. I just
again,
maybe
well,
it is.
again,
I'm just saying
what
I didn't love the decision personally.
again, when I had said my initial thoughts, I brought up the idea of everything else is taking the back seat. It's a normal human interaction. You're looking at these camera shots and they're obstructed because you're looking at it from the perspective of various different people within the audience, or you're looking at it from a perspective of somebody who's up top. You're not looking at it like a dead-on fight, like when somebody would have a camera pointed at the stage, I said almost at the stage, the ring, and you're watching two people beat the crap out of each other, and it's brutal, and it's this and that. It's not the center focus. That was the key thing you had said. It's not the center focus, and you're right because it's not. That's the point. Um,
That's fair because what you just mentioned actually did kind of make sense to me. And the way that they shot it isn't done to obstruct it purposefully to pull the weight off. They're doing it in a way in which the camera shots of the ring are meant to be viewed from another person's perspective, not
Yeah.
like a movie perspective in the sense of you're viewing it from a camera perspective. You're viewing it from a person who's standing at the side of the ring watching this unfold. So no, I think that that's actually a really fair counter to my argument, and I think that makes a lot of sense.
This movie is really hard to talk about. We're mostly because like when you look at a I've already said this, and I said this in my general thoughts, and this is going to lead us into more conversation. This movie's hard to talk about because when you look at the big significant moments, you can talk about them, but because they took such a back seat in the film and they chose to focus on individual relationships and moments and scenes and this and that, you can't talk about big overcoming moments or talk about these big things that happen because they just happen, and that's the point of what's happening. Like, you know what I
I
mean?
mean, I think we can. I think we can.
I think
Let's do you do you want to
let's
start off?
try.
Do you want to start off with an easy one?
Let's
The
start off with
best,
an easy one.
the hands
Yeah,
down,
yeah, yeah.
without question, best scene in the entire movie. And if you disagree with me on this, I will fight you tooth and nail. It is hands down the best acted, best shot, best everything seen in this movie, and is what really sold me on this movie. Granted, I was already sold, and this happens later on. It is that fight, the right before the party,
Yeah.
leading in that is hands down, without question, is the magnum opus of this movie. It is
It's the
done
build. Yeah.
so it's not the build, it's the payoff to the build. You've been
Yeah.
building the entire movie. This scene is the payoff to that. The way that they shoot this, the way that they use audio design in this with the sense of you hear the gun before you see the gun, like all of those moments, like my entire theater was gasping. Like I had a really fun theater experience. I don't know about you, but my whole theater was into this movie. I saw this on a Thursday night, and it was like a half full. It was half full, but it was surprising for like a Thursday night for
Sure.
a movie of this caliber.
Sure.
So I had a pretty decent crowd experience where like, yeah, people were like shouting out at moments of this movie and like either cheering on or booing, like pretty interactive. And in that moment, whole theater was like gasping and freaking out. And like, I just think that that was a really, again, it calls back to the like the first fight that we see where the Rock punches a door, which I'll throw in here really quickly. Some of the seriousness of that moment was taken out by one of the audience members. I will place the audience member at fault here because he punches the door. It's supposed to be this really big emotional moment. You're supposed to like really feel the emotions. And I was, and I'm living in the emotions. And then all of a sudden I hear someone say, that door was just fucking cardboard. And I was like, okay, buddy, okay.
Brother, what do you think? The Rock was gonna punch through an actual door on set? You think they do that to him?
To
Like, here's
be
the thing.
fair, it was a little obvious how cardboard it was, but it was
Sure, but that's everything in like physical, tangible, breakable things. Like, I'm sorry, when you see somebody punch through drywall in the film, you think it's real drywall? No.
look. I'm not defending anything. I'm just saying that that was a very funny moment. But I bring that up because when you actually get to the second fight in the big magnum opus, like you feel it. You really feel the emotions. You have this scene where The Rock is holding Emily Blunt. You think things are going to get good. She says, okay, fine. And she goes and she starts unlocking the safe and things start to click into place. And it's just so well done. I love the hallway shot. This is another part of the cinematography that really works is you don't jump to Emily Blunt immediately. No, you're looking from The Rock's perspective. I keep saying The Rock, but The Rock's as an actor's perspective down the hallway and seeing this
Right.
play out. You're not seeing this from a God perspective, essentially, in the sense of we're looking down at Emily Blunt from the corner of the bedroom, which you
Right.
do get a little bit, but you don't introduce it that way. You introduce it with The Rock looking down the hallway, and all he sees, which is all we see, is someone holding a gun to their head and
Right.
freaking out, understandably so. And I think that I'll let you talk in a second, but I think what that moment represents is the payoff for one of my favorite core plot lines of this movie, and that is both of these people are toxic. Both
Yes.
of them.
Yes.
Neither of them are, I don't want to say neither of them are good people, but they are both problems in this relationship. And they do an expert job of selling you on that. They do
Yeah.
an expert job of making you feel that. Because a lot of times in toxic relationships, even when both parties are the problem, media has a typical leaning to make one party, and I'm not saying male or female, I'm just saying one party more the problem than the other, this movie doesn't fall into that trap for me. It does an expert job of making you understand that both of these people are the problem, and that scene is what that represents. You might
Well,
be like,
yeah.
"Oh, well, The Rock is the problem. He's focusing on his career," but then that makes you like, if you didn't realize already that she is also super unstable and also leaning into all of these problems.
This film reminds me a lot, and it's a very different story because one's about UFC relationships, kind of. The other's the focusing on a relationship is the point. But this film reminds me of the movie Marriage Story. I don't think you ever watched that. I've
I
told
didn't, but I've heard great things about
I've
Marriage
t-
Story. That's the
I've
Adam
told
Driver,
you
Scarlett Johansson movie.
I've told you to watch this movie before.
I know.
The whole film, when you look at it, it's similar to also like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where you're building to something, you don't know you're building something, but the entire movie is basically one big build piece, and then it's the resolution of that build piece. That's the takeaway. It's the best scene. One of the final scenes of Marriage Story is Johansson and Driver just getting into it, letting into each other, and arguing with each other. You have scenes where they bicker, and you have scenes where things build. The reason that scene in the movie is so impactful is because you don't see them full on argue with each other the way they do in the final scene.
Yeah.
It's a build, and there's disagreements, and divorce lawyers get involved, and this and that, and things build towards it, but then they get into it at the very end, and that's what makes that scene so memorable and what makes it so good. And here it's the same thing. They bicker, they fight, and they have moments where they fight. Um, they have a lot of dark moments when things go south or things happen, this and that. It's that final scene where it literally is like a 7-minute scene. They start in the kitchen. They start talking about, well, why don't you want to take me to Japan? And it already starts off toxic because Mark says things that he doesn't mean to say, but he says them anyway. And
Mm.
then she says things that she's not meaning to say, and then it starts spiraling out of control even more. And then they walk into their living room or wherever, and he starts sitting down, and they argue in there more and more and more, and it gets worse and worse and worse. And he just lets it out, leave, get out, I'm done. And in that, this is also what makes the moment more shocking: is you're happy that he does it because it's somebody's finally
Yes.
break. Like even like you're not happy because he's still wrong to a certain extent in the argument. Like he's not
Yeah,
being a
again,
good
there's
person about
still
it.
both
They're
problems in
still
the
toxic,
relationship.
but he's doing the right thing by breaking it off finally. And you're
Mhm.
so happy in that moment that he does it. Then she pulls out the gun. Then
Yeah.
you walk in the room. That whole last section, just audible, like this, hand over mouth, just like what is going to happen. Because you asked the question at the beginning, how much history do I know about going into this? None. I knew none of
Okay.
it. And I
Okay.
was okay with that. I didn't actually look at the history for that reason because I wanted to
I'm
be
very
surprised by
happy I
anything that.
didn't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew nothing about it, so I was just shocked by everything. Um, which is okay if you know the history to things. You can still enjoy things even if you know the history. But that's one of those things where it's like I nothing about it at all, knew nothing.
Yeah.
That scene is the magnum opus of this movie because it's what it builds towards. It's what it constantly builds towards. Um, and that's why it's so good. Is because the performances. There's no other way to say it. The performances are just so raw, and it's so well written. And sometimes the best times with acting is, and this is what DiCaprio does really well. You don't know what's improvised, and you don't know what's scripted
Yeah.
because you can tell that actors get into the moment, but you don't know what's actually been given to them versus what they're actually doing. And it's just for between both these two, you can tell that The Rock and Blunt have very good chemistry with one another
Yeah.
because
Well, in
the scene's really well done.
you had mentioned that The Rock was your favorite part of this in terms of acting. I already said it, but I'll say it again. Like Emily
Emily
Blunt is
Blunt,
a standout for me. Like
incredible.
she is, I don't want to say leagues above The Rock, but like specifically for the moments of raw emotion, she brings it unlike anyone else in this movie. I think that it is just so brutal in her portrayal of the neglect that she does feel. And I think that that's again the fun part of this, can't call it fun, but the interesting part of this
The
movie
fun.
of the way that they play with the, she is narcissistic. That is
Yes.
her problem. That is one of her problems. Is she's very narcissistic. So is Mark. Mark is
He,
also very narcissistic. You put two narcissistic, non-moving objects together, and you're gonna butt heads. It's going to be a problem.
unstoppable force meets immovable object
Correct. Correct.
collides. That's
That's
what happened.
also why the reveal at the end of the movie that they got married, like, what, 10 days after the fight or something like that, I was like, I was gobsmacked. I was gobsmacked that they got married in real life and have kids together. I was gobsmacked.
Well, and this is why I want you to watch Goodfellas, and this is kind of a spoiler, but Goodfellas is based off of a real history, so I'm not like spoiling
Mhm.
anything. It's been, written in history. It's literally history. Um, the main character at the end of Goodfellas, it's revealed that, oh yeah, they went into witness protection, they did all this, and yeah, after 3 years they divorced. You're like, what? You go through all of that, you just divorce, and it's no different here. You go through all of the trial, all of the heartache, and you get married a
Yep.
week after you get home. I'm
So
like,
quickly afterwards.
it's so toxic, and that relationship's so interesting. The other relationship that makes this movie works
Mark Kern, I
is,
would
is
assume. The Mark
well,
Coleman, Mark Kern relationship.
Mark Kern, Mark Coleman.
The two
They
Marks.
they both are they both treat each other like brothers. They both treat each other like family, and that's why when it comes to Coleman, um, you he drops everything he does to go see him in the hospital. One of my favorite scenes with Coleman, actually, it doesn't actually have to do anything with The Rock or Mark Kerr. It's actually
Mhm.
when he's at home and he's just interacting with his family. And this pulls me back to normal human interactions. That is a completely normal human interaction. It was just
Yeah.
Coleman, fighting his daughter. He's not fighting like in like an argument style. He's like play fighting and whatnot. And
Mhm.
he's the
He's
champion,
being a dad.
whatever. He's being a dad. And it's some of the most real writing that I've seen for a dad this year, or just for a human being. Like, that's exactly how you would react. That's exactly how a normal human being would react. I know this because I've seen it, and it feels real. It feels personable. But the relationship but I almost said that Mark and Mark share, but both Marks. The relationship that Kerr and Coleman share. Let's do that because that's easier.
Yeah.
It's a very unique one, because the movie, like you said, the biggest twist of this film is that Kerr doesn't go on to the finals to fight Coleman, but the movie promptly and constantly
Makes you
insists
think that that's where it's gonna
that
go.
that's where it's going to go. That's what they're
That's
building
exactly what
towards.
the trailer made the movie seem like, is the movie made it feel like the magnum opus was gonna be two best friends fighting each other in the ring, and that's why this is what a trailer should do. This is what a trailer should do. It should make you interested in the movie and subvert your expectations, not
Which is what it
the
did.
goddamn plot.
Which is what it did. And again, I think the thing that I love about this ending is it does technically have an arc. Mark has an arc to a certain extent. Yeah, he doesn't break off his toxic relationship. He gets married with her. Obviously, they say in the thing. The arc that this film has is him coming to understand it's okay to lose.
Yeah.
And that's why he laughs at the end. That's why he smiles. Because even if you lose, something better can happen for a close friend of yours or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm being very
No,
I'm
well,
being very
it
loose with it.
is
But that
it
is the
is
arc that he
shedding
has.
that feeling of toxic masculinity that this
Yes.
movie is trying to portray, in the sense of it's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to not be the strongest. It's okay to give up your seat sometimes, because yeah, Mark Coleman is a dad. He has family. He also is considering retiring. A lot of people are telling him that he should retire, and that's his arc. His arc is realizing that he can still be in the game. He can
Right.
still continue fighting. The arc that we have for Kern, I don't want to say is the opposite, but it is the sense of it's okay to not be perfect. Like,
Right.
Coleman's already realized this. This is something that Kern needs to learn on his own. Now, speaking about Coleman specifically, this is Ryan Bader's first introduction to acting.
Yeah.
He is a fighter. He is I don't know if is it UCC or UFC or
I think it's UFC.
okay.
I
Yeah,
think.
he is a professional fighter, which I recognize him immediately. Like, I don't keep up with fighting, but
Yeah.
I feel like he's one of the biggest faces of fighting. Like, he's
Yeah.
pretty recognizable. He does. I think he does a good job in this movie. I think it's clear that this is his first time acting, for sure, but I don't think that that's necessarily he doesn't turn in a bad performance. I think
No, it's
he
all natural.
he
I will
clearly
say.
learned over the course of the movie. I think his performance gets better over time. I
Yeah.
don't know if they shot this movie chronologically, but to me, it did feel like his performance got better over the course of the movie. He kind of felt a little stale in the beginning to me.
I don't
Entirely.
see that. So I don't think that it's that he seems stale. Here's the thing. I actually think he gives a phenomenal performance. It's natural. It like I keep saying, it's normal human being. I think the reason you're saying that is because he doesn't have any moments like The Rock, like Emily
No, no,
Blunt.
no, 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 no. I think my the reason why I say that, and the reason why I would assume you're probably higher on this as well, is you are a lot more used to the personalities of wrestlers and the
Fair enough.
way that they act and conduct themselves and how they are as people and as the actors that they portray when they fight. Now, UFC isn't acting like WWE is; these are actual real fights, but there's
It's a sport,
still
right?
a little bit of a spice in there, I'll say. And so you know what it's like for these characters. For me, I'm not as familiar with how they are as people. So they probably are pretty stale, like, and this probably felt a lot more natural to how they are outside of the ring. To me, just watching it from a moviegoer's perspective, it did feel a little bit, especially towards the beginning, a little bit flat to a degree.
Maybe in the beginning, maybe. I just don't see that. I actually walked out of this movie really enjoying his performance just because again, like how natural it was, how normal it was. And honestly, maybe that was the key is that he isn't an actor. He is a guy who was a UFC fighter. And so they said, here's some really well written dialogue. Say it. But like, I think the biggest thing they probably told him initially was just play yourself, like be yourself and just say the words because that's really what came across is like it was not an act. Like I didn't feel like he was acting. I felt like he was reading it, but it wasn't like he was acting like and it was really like trying. It felt natural. And
Yeah.
it's not because he was portraying like this bigger, larger than life character. It's because he was portraying somebody. This is where it's coming to line of like, do you think the character that Dwayne Johnson, was able to do this role because it's very natural. He knows the ins and outs. I think Ryan Bader as Mark Coleman was able to do that because he knows the ins and outs of being a UFC fighter.
No, I definitely agree with that, and I still think my point holds with The Rock, but I do think that that is very true for Ryan Bader as well, and you're right in his portrayal of Mark Coleman.
Do I think he has an Emmy winning performance here? No, but that's also because I don't think Mark Coleman was given enough to earn that
He's
performance.
not. Here's the thing. He's not supposed to be.
He's not supposed to be.
He's there to. I don't. It's so weird saying he's there to move the plot along because this is a real human being who actually went through all of these terrible things.
Right,
But
right.
in general sense, in the way that they portray him in the movie, it is kind of just there to move the plot along, but in a good way, not in a bad way in the sense of like Economos in this season of Peacemaker is just there to add some action to move the plot along.
Sure.
This performance is a lot more to add to the story while still moving the plot along. Because I think,
Right.
like, for instance, the moment that like really shows you like, oh, they are friends, and this is the moment. I'll bring up an example, and this is what I do think was a little bit more of a stale performance. But again, maybe that's just me. And this is the example that I was thinking of when I was talking. Technically, not early in the movie, it's actually later in the movie. It's the scene where he's on the phone with Dawn, and Kern just ended up in the hospital. That performance was good. I just didn't get as much emotion out of it in terms of your best friend in the entire world that you just flew halfway across the country for was hospitalized and you're on the phone and she's freaking out. Now, granted, he's trying to stay calm for her sake, but I just didn't feel as much emotion there. But that is then immediately contrasted by his performance in the hospital with Kern, which I
Yeah.
did feel like was a lot more of a natural reaction. Again,
I
wasn't
I actually
crying and feeling in his feels, but it was it. felt a lot more like a guy who wanted to be there for his friend, while also kind of leaning into the fact of you need to get your shit together.
So now that you've like pointed out like a specific example, I think that was a normal reaction, and I'm gonna pull from various different like. First off, when somebody calls you crying over the phone, you don't really know how to react. You're trying to stay calm for their benefit, or maybe you just don't know how to react because it's all happening so much at once. That's exactly how I feel like a normal person would react. Like, you would be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm on the first flight," whatever. Like, people don't typically just break down crying when they find out that they're, when their friend is in the
I
hospital.
do.
Okay,
And maybe
okay,
that's just
well,
me. Maybe that's just me, but I'm gonna break
okay, then it depends on the type of person then. And when
true.
you look at the type of person that Coleman is, he's a strong, very masculine, very male presence. Again, he's a fighter. He might not have as much emotional of an output as it's more of like an internal wrestle. That I feel I don't think the performance was stale. I think that's exactly what a reaction would be. I'm also saying that because I'm pulling an example from The Sopranos. There's a scene in The Sopranos when one of the main characters' dad goes to the hospital, and the guy's in Florida. He picks up the phone. Your dad's in the hospital. Anything he needs. I'm on the first flight, and he gets out of the pool and he starts running to go back inside to pack a bag or whatever. I don't know. It was the same level of performance.
I would say there was a little. I haven't seen The Sopranos, so I don't know the scene you're talking about. I just felt like there was a little less sense of urgency in the moment to me to get on
Okay,
the flight to get
without
there. But
without booking a flight or without looking at flight times, what is the you're not going to run to your car without having any semblance of a plan, without packing a bag. Like, you also have a kid in the room and a wife. You have to tell them what's going on. Like, you're not going to be running around the house doing all these things
I
for.
think that depends on the person. I think that fully depends on the person, and I guess
And
because well, here's the thing that I'll talk about because we're not going to agree on this. But
no, not
moving
at
on,
all.
I think that the thing that this movie does really well, and it is the before part of that scene with with Coleman, is the Coleman represents the I guess more positive side of masculinity. You see him with his kids, you see him being a good father, you see him being a good friend. Then
Right.
you have Kern, who's the exact opposite, who's the toxic male. He is the drug addict, the abusive he's not the saint in the relationship. He's not the only bad guy, but he is not the saint in the relationship. And they're showing a lot more of him as the toxic side of masculinity, while you're having Coleman be a lot more of the positive force of masculinity and showing the dichotomy between those two characters with kind of the at the exact same time of you're literally going from this guy who's being a father to this other guy who's in the hospital because he abused drugs.
Sure. Sure.
And I like the way that the movie sets that up. Because again, it's weird to talk about because these are actions that happen in real life, but I don't know exactly if that's like, for instance, was Coleman actually playing with his kids, having that exact same argument at the time that he got that phone call? I don't know. A lot of
Well,
the time,
okay,
the movie has
yeah.
that in to enhance the movie, but if that is a scene that they added in to enhance the movie, I appreciate that they did it, is what I'm
The
getting.
So that's a messy topic to talk about, is like, well, did this actually happen? When this actually happened? Nobody actually knows. Unless you wrote a book about it and you
Well, people do because they're still alive.
well,
Both Coleman and Kern are still alive, so they
right,
know.
but the chance that he's playing with his daughter at that exact moment, you don't actually know. And they had no
Yeah.
creative control. Maybe Kerr did, but Coleman probably would have had no creative control over this film or like how things were shot. He probably saw the movie and went, "Oh, that's cool. I like that. Whatever." Point being, it's hard with true stories or things that are, based off of something else to tell the exact way this happened, because it's just an unfair statement. People get mad when you look at a film like Straight Outta Compton or Bohemian Rhapsody or Rocket Man or La Bamba, because people are always like, well, it's not 100% accurate to the history. What did you think it was going to be? Yes, he playing
No
with it.
real
Like,
life retelling is gonna be
it's
accurate to the
never going
exact
to be. I
events.
think there's also nothing more clear to prove that than the biggest resource, the Bible. Everything that's
Well,
been based off of the Bible, you can't accurately depict what goes on in that. You just can't. And it goes for every biopic. It goes for every movie that's been based off of one. It goes for this here too.
well, okay, here's the thing though, and it's not a counter to your argument, but I can understand where certain people are coming from in the sense of yes, a movie is not going to be able to portray exactly what happened. That should never be a person's expectation. First of all, the movie's probably going to be a lot more boring than you might realize if you actually just shot for shot recreated every single thing that happened. For all we know, Coleman was taking a shit at the time that he got that. Like, portraying it one for one exactly, you don't know what's going on. It won't make it as interesting. And yeah, Coleman probably was a good dad who played with his kids. So it makes sense. And I think that is where it's all about the way the movie uses the not true elements to mix in the true elements. Because I do think that there are movies that do a bad job of mixing in the unrealistic with the realistic to over exaggerate emotions, to over exaggerate tensions. This movie's not one of them, but
Right.
that's the argument that I can make in terms of people, the conversation surrounding, oh, this didn't actually happen in real life. Yeah, you're not going to shot for shot recreate someone's life. First of all, it's impossible. Second of all, it's probably going to be more boring than you think. However, it's up to the movie and the writers and the directors to determine how they incorporate the true elements in a way that still feels natural while also making it watchable to a moviegoer. And that
Sure.
would be having Mark Coleman playing with his kids right before he gets the phone call. Whether that happened in real life is irrelevant. It's the fact that it is probably a real thing that happened that makes sense for the way that they are trying to portray that scene in the
It
movie.
just may not have happened in that exact moment, but it's
Exactly,
probably something that did happen.
exactly. And that's probably the case with multiple scenes in this movie that didn't play out one for one exactly.
I'm gonna fill you in on something. That's the case in every single biopic, no
No, and
matter
I know.
how early it
I'm
is.
not I'm not saying that's not. I'm just saying that the reason why people will have a problem with the unrealistic portrayals for a biopic, for me, when I go into it, it's less about how realistic it is and more about how they incorporate the unrealistic elements in making them feel believable in the
Sure.
realism of the story that you are telling. This story is a good example of them doing it right. A lot of the movies that you listed, some of them have their problems with the way that they do that and incorporate the unrealistic
Well,
elements.
and again, I have a friend who, like, let's use this example, who loves the Elvis movie for its historical accuracy
Mhm.
and praises it. And after I watched that movie with that friend, I leaned over and said, I still think I prefer Rocket Man and Straight Outta Compton. He goes, "Ooh, but what about the historical accuracy? Like, this is so accurate." That does not mean that the movie's better.
Yeah,
And when you look at Straight Outta Compton, for example, there wasn't any historical inaccuracies. They just left stuff out of the story because they didn't really want to touch over it because it might not be something you want to touch over. And
fair enough. Yeah,
I can't speak on behalf of the Elvis movie. I don't know if they have historical inaccuracies or moments like that where they left stuff out. But like you said, it's not a shot for shot remake of somebody's exact life, how they lived it day to day. It Leaving stuff out of a biopic is different because it's okay. Like if there are some things you want to touch over, that's fine. There's some things you don't want to touch over. They touched over the important stuff, and that's what matters.
correct. All
And
a good biopic needs to do is focus on what you're trying to portray to the audience. And if you incorporate things that might not have happened exactly the way that they happen in real life, my only ask is that it has to be done naturally and believably. Not every movie does that well. The Coleman scene represents an instance of them doing it well, though.
well, and I think the difference is like with a Rocket Man type, that's a very artsy film. First off, it's a musical. So it's kind of hard to make it natural when somebody's singing around dancing the way they are, especially because we know Elton John probably did not actually do that. Uh,
Fair enough.
but
Yeah.
it's an artsy film. It's told in musical form. It's the way Elton John probably would have wanted his story to be told, is in a musical form. And that's why I love that film. When it is a natural interaction, it is really, really good. And there's a lot of moments like that where you just have moments to have natural reactions and interactions. But I think that as a whole, it's focusing on the artsy, creative storytelling. And that's the point of that movie. Straight Outta Compton is more so your stereotypical biopic, but it focuses on a really a style of music that doesn't really get a lot of focus in the modern day biopics, or at least
Yeah.
hasn't yet. The closest thing is 8 Mile, and that was like 2002, I think. So it's old. And even then, that's still a very different story from NWA. Um, I've said a lot about this movie, and I guess we could break it down scene by scene, and we go scene by scene. But really, we've already talked about it. Like the build to that final scene is the magnum opus of this entire film, and that final scene is just so strong. Each performance is done really well. This is definitely by far, again, not really comparing much, but this is definitely The Rock's best performance. Emily Blunt gives another standout performance. She's done a lot of things over the years, though, so I don't think
Yeah.
like she actually has something to where it's like I would have to compare, like see, like is this her best
Yeah,
rendition?
The
Not.
Rock, this is obviously his best performance. Emily Blunt, she's played other good roles.
So you'd have to like actually sit down and debate it because you don't know. Um, but the film is also handled with care. It's again written immaculately. It makes the bold choice of allowing the events of the film to take a back seat and let the character or the actual person who Mark Kerr was come through, which I love. I like that idea. Um, and some of the cinematography is really good. So as a whole, this is a really, really good film. Um, and for me, it is one of the best of the year.
I think that's fair. I don't know if this will end up on my top 10 just because of how stacked my top 10 is. This has been an insane year for movies, but I don't I'm gonna after we get done, I'm gonna watch some of the reviews on this movie to try and understand why a lot of people seem to be a lot lower on this movie than I felt
I yeah,
about
I
because
kind of want to do that too, just 'cause I'm curious. I mean,
because
I listened to a few, but none of them were like super negative. Like I don't think really they had any negative
Well, because if you
thoughts.
look at the ratings of this movie, and I know we talk about how we don't love ratings, and there's a reason we don't add numbers, but 7.1 out of 10 on IMDb, 73% on Rotten Tomatoes, and 3.4 out of 5 stars on Letterbox. It's not getting bad ratings, but it's also not necessarily getting the highest of praise.
Yeah,
Like
it just
more
makes you think like why, like what specifically brought you to that conclusion.
yeah. But no, I think that it's a good movie. I think it is I don't think this movie's for everyone. I think there's a lot of movies that we've been watching recently that aren't for everyone. I think like The Long Walk isn't for everyone. One Battle After Another isn't for everyone. I think this is another example of a movie that isn't going to be for everyone because
Yeah,
this is a very artsy film. It is very A24 coded because it is A24 has been pumping out movies like Insano style. They're the next
yeah,
big studio that like has actually pumped out some really good movies. And
yeah.
this isn't the last A24 movie that we have on the docket to talk about this year, even. So A24 might be dominating some of our lists at the end of the year. But I think that if the trailer hooked you, you're going to enjoy the movie. If the trailer didn't hook you, I'm not saying you're not going to enjoy the movie because it does subvert expectations in the direction that they take the movie. I will just say that, again, this is a very uncomfortable movie to watch. It is.
Yes.
Plain and simple, it is a very hard and uncomfortable movie to watch at times, not because it's bad, but because that's exactly what the movie is supposed to make you
Right.
feel. But if
Right.
you don't think that you can handle that, I would understand because, yeah, someone who's been abused and been in these situations before, this might be hard to watch. And I can understand that. So if that sounds like something you wouldn't enjoy, you might want to steer clear of this movie. But if you think that this is a movie that you would enjoy, if you like the artsy biopic styles and you want to see The Rock bring home a good performance and Emily Blunt bring home a really good performance, like I definitely think that this should be on your watch list.
I think before I take us out, I'm gonna pull a Jake Peralta and I'm gonna say that the Smashing Machine title of your sex tape. I've been holding that one back because it's actually really funny once you think about it. You love Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Don't get mad at me. Don't get mad at me.
I'm just mad that I didn't think of it. That's all I'm mad about.
It's really funny.
But do you want to tell? Do you remember what we're talking about next week?
I don't, but I can say something that's going to make you happy, and I don't know if it's next week. I did start watching Chainsaw Man.
Let's go. Oh, we need to talk about that after this because I have a surprise for you for that review. But that is next week. Next week is Tron Ares.
Yeah, I'm seeing that Thursday. That's right. I'm sorry.
Yep.
I did.
I'm also seeing it in Thursday in IMAX. So yeah, Tron Ares and the
that.
season finale of Peacemaker season 2. So next week's going to be a big one. I've already made the thumbnail for that episode. Not us. Obviously, we don't have the pictures of us, but I made the thumbnail for that episode. I think it's my favorite thumbnail that I've ever made. I'll show it to you after we're done if you have a second. But I don't know if Tron Ares is going to be good. I don't.
None of us.
But I'm excited to watch it. I am.
I gotta watch those movies this week because I haven't seen.
I'm also gonna go back and rewatch those movies over the course of the next few days. At least Tron and Tron Legacy.
Yeah, I'm about to link up with a friend and be like, all right, turn these on, let's watch them because I have to. They're doing a marathon at like Disney Springs or something, and it's like all three. I don't know if I want to sit through all three.
What is that, like 6 hours or something of movies nearly, or maybe?
Look, man, you're talking to the person who sat through longer for a film franchise and whatnot. I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can do it. If you
go with the right group of friends, it can be a fun time. If you go by yourself, it'll probably be miserable.
The thing is, like, I don't know what these films are. I don't know if I'm gonna like these films or not because I
have you never seen any of the Tron?
I have not seen any of the Trons.
Wow. Because I have seen Tron Legacy, and I think I've seen the original Tron, but if I did it so long ago, I need a refresher. But I do remember Tron Legacy.
I'll figure out my plans. But with that being said,
the week after is Chainsaw Man, I believe, the Reze Arc movie.
Yes.
So yeah.
I'm never gonna remember that title. I'm just gonna call it Chainsaw Man. That's gonna be a really weird thing for me because it's like
I'm really excited.
It's just gonna be weird because I'm like, I don't watch anime on a regular basis, so I'm gonna watch this.
That's why I'm excited for this.
I'm not gonna be negative on the movie, but also like if I am, it's also not gonna be like I hated it. It's just gonna be like I don't get it because
I have a non-anime fan's perspective. I think.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to look at it because that's how that whole review is gonna go.
Yeah.
With that being said, let's wrap this puppy up, shall we?
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Nerdy Nimrods podcast. Episode 31, by the way. We didn't mention that last week was the 30th. We completely forgot to do that. Episode 31.
Big step in.
If you like what you heard, if you like what you saw, give us a like. Give us a follow. Tell us what you thought about Peacemaker. Tell us what you thought about the Smashing Machine. You can find us on all streaming platforms. Apple Podcast, Amazon Podcast, Spotify, YouTube. You name it, we are on there. I can promise you. You can find us on all social media platforms under @NerdyNimrods. And ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, Brandon, as always, stay nerdy.